Today we're going to be servicing the rear wheel bearings and hub on this 2014 Triumph Speed Triple. This is due at 2 years or 12,000 miles. This bike is now 4 years old. It's got 10,500 miles. As I'm aware, I don't believe that this hub has ever been off. Let's take a look at some of the tools you're going to need to do this job. You're going to need a C-spanner to slacken off your chain. You have one of these in your toolkit. This is just a different one. You'll need a Torx bit, that's a T30. You're going to need a 14mm socket, a 17mm socket, a 46mm socket, a nylon hammer, or maybe a normal hammer with a block of wood, various ratchets, pliers, and an all-important torque wrench. Here's a diagram of what we're going to take apart. Before you jack the bike up, it's a good idea to loosen off both the nuts. There's a nut here. Now this nut is a stake nut. The easiest way to get this off is just to turn it with a 46mm socket. That will then unstake it. This is a sacrificial nut. You're supposed to get a new one, but these are about £20 from the main dealer. As long as you don't damage it, I can't see any reason not to reuse it, so I'll probably be reusing this one. You also need to slacken off this nut as well, so we'll do those before we get them onto the stand. On this one you need to remove the circlip. Okay, so we now have the bike jacked up. As I said, you may jack your bike up in a different fashion. Just make sure it's safe and secure. Be aware of the order of the nuts, bolts and washers. So your nut, obviously your nut comes off first. Okay, so then you have your conical washer. This is a curved washer. Remember which way it goes back on. So the outer curve touches first. Okay, then there's another washer in there. It's a little stuck, I think. There it goes. And then you've got your main conical spacer. So we'll just try to remember which way they go back on. But often a good idea just to stack them in the correct order. Okay, now we're going to remove the rear brake caliper. 14mm. It's a little bit of a pain to get to. these bolts are also sacrificial apparently, you need to replace them. Again, I can't see why, I'm not going to. Again, these are about £7.50 each from the main dealer. Now that one appears to have copper slip or copper grease on it. That one doesn't. Personally, I would have put thread lock on it. I'll have to look into that before I reassemble it. Good idea as well to have something at hand to hang your caliper. Okay, we're now going to take this nut all the way off. There we go. So there is your sacrificial nut. But I am going to use this again because it doesn't look too bad. £20 is awfully expensive for a nut. Okay, we're going to remove the washer. Again, that's a conical spaced washer, so it makes sure it goes on correctly. Okay, and there's your next spacer. Just remember to keep these together in the right order. Now we're going to undo the pinch bolt for the rear chain adjuster. Okay, and a good idea now to get your chain guard off. This is a T30 torque bit. Okay, just going to take some tension out of the chain of the C-spanner. I've got my own, but there are tools under your seat. Okay, remember to slacken on these chains, it's clockwise, not anti-clockwise as you might think. Okay, as you can see, I've just put a trolley jack under the swing arm. I'm getting a little bit nervous hitting this, just to be on the safe side. Yeah, I can hit it with a bit more authority then. Okay, let's take this carefully out. Okay, first impressions are that the bearing looks in good condition. So I'm going to just re-grease it, clean and re-grease in situ. I'm not going to take it off. If you did want to take the hub carrier out, I think you've got to take these circlips off, take the chain adjuster off, and it should slide out. But that looks quite clean. I'm not sure how much of that you can see. The other side similar. The other side looks a little more dirty, but in generally good condition. That's more of a sealed bearing than the other side. Okay, I'm hoping you can see that okay. I'm just going to get a little bit of paraffin in there. That's moving quite freely, it doesn't seem like it's snagging at all. I've seen some of these on other videos where there's been water on the inside. This is fine. Okay, this side doesn't need a lot of cleaning, it's a sealed bearing. Just trying to take some of the grime off. This that won't take a lot of cleaning. Right, that's those all cleaned up nicely. Upon reassembly, I think the only thing that really needs greasing are the exposed needle bearings. That said, there was a little bit of grease on this shaft, so I will put some on just in case. The rest of the bearings, like this one, and this one, they are sealed units, there's nothing wrong with them, I'm not going to mess about. They seem fine. I'm just going to get some grease in here. Try to push it into the bearings as you roll them around. Now to reassemble the rear wheel axle. I'm just going to put a little bit of grease on here. I don't think it really needs it. There seemed to be some on it when I took it apart. And that went in a lot easier than it came out. Now reassembly in reverse order. So first of all, this washer. Which I've cleaned. And then put a tiny bit of grease on, just in case. Now the hub. Next is the flange or sleeve. Then your conical washer. Then your nut. Just done up loosely for a moment till the bike's on the floor. Okay, now to reassemble the rear brakes. I've already given the brakes a little clean down with some brake cleaner. Now if you remember when I took the brakes off, one of the bolts had copper grease on it and one didn't. I would have thought thread lock would have been better, but I'll just go with what's already on there. Remember, if you know better, comment, let me know. And this needs to be torqued to 40 Newton meters. Quite tricky to get the bolts in there, it's very much lack of access. Okay, over the rear wheel. Okay, now for reassembly. So it's spacer, first washer, conical washer, Remember to have the outside edge on the inside. Then nut. That's likely done up until we get the bike back on the ground. Okay, remember to readjust your chain, which I already have, and then tighten up your pinch bolt. It's 55 Newton meters on this bike. Okay, now the bike's back off the stand. You can tighten these up. 146 Newton meters. Remember to punch. And again this side, 146 Newton meters. And remember your retaining clip. The only additional thing I'm now going to do is just spray the disc with brake cleaner, just in case it picked up any oil or grease. There we go, that is pretty much it. Now, that was my first time of doing that myself. I'm not a motorbike mechanic. If you enjoyed that video, press like. You can also subscribe, and if you want to post any comments, feel free.